Tonight, 9 additional deaths and 78 new cases recorded on the island in the last 24 hours, taking COVID-19 related deaths to 160 and cases to 8,067. Minister without portfolio in the Ministry of National Security, Senator Matthew Samuda, announces that 37 members of the correctional services and 24 inmates have tested positive for COVID-19.
Had 37 cases amongst staff out of 128 persons tested, and we have 7 tests currently pending. Within the inmate population, we have had 24 cases.
Still tonight, Minister of Health visits Waterford in St. Catherine and Whitfield Town in St. Andrew as ongoing testing and surveillance takes place due to rise in COVID-19 cases in these communities.
To date, we have done a number of home visits, 3,000 or 4,000 home visits.
And we have actually done every single street, every household, and we have accounted for everybody.
And students from 2 schools in Montego Bay on the PATH program gifted with tablets to assist them with online learning.
Seeking some approvals to acquire another 16,000 tablets and 15,000 laptops that we're going to start distributing hopefully in the next few weeks.
Good evening. 9 additional COVID-19 related deaths and 78 new cases were recorded on the island in the last 24 hours. Now this takes the death toll from COVID-19 in Jamaica to 160 and total cases on record for the island to 8,067. According to the Ministry of Health and Wellness, the deceased are a 66-year-old male and a 44-year-old female from Kingston and St. Andrew, an 87-year-old female from St. Thomas, a 63-year-old female from St. Catherine, a 70-year-old male and an 82-year-old female from St. Elizabeth, a 92-year-old male of a Manchester address and a 75-year-old male and a 76-year-old female from St. Anne. Of the newly confirmed cases, 45 are females and 33 are males, ranging in age from 1 to 92 years. The cases were recorded in Kingston and St. Andrew with 56, St. Anne 5, St. James 4 cases, St. Catherine, Clarendon, St. Thomas, Trelawney and Westmoreland 2 cases each, Portland, St. Elizabeth and Hanover 1 case each. There are 47 moderately ill and 18 critically ill patients among the 4,320 active cases now under observation in Jamaica. Also, recoveries increased by 50, taking the total of recovered persons to 3,481. Still making news tonight, Minister without portfolio in the Ministry of National Security, Senator Matthew Samuda, during a press briefing earlier today, announced that 37 members of the correctional services and 24 inmates have tested positive for COVID-19.
Had 37 cases amongst staff out of 128 persons tested, and we have 7 tests currently pending. Within the inmate population, we have had 24 cases confirmed positive of 271 tested, and 11 of these 24 cases are indeed recovered. For the other cases, and certainly in every single case, we've done proper contact tracing. We've closed down blocks and lockdown movement where we've needed to. We've depended very heavily on our own SMO and on the public health departments, depending on where the facilities are. And I think the team has done a very good job. Now, important also to note, in expectation of the fact that though we hoped COVID wouldn't enter our facilities, we had allocated significant time and investment to improving the capacity of the internal hospitals within our facilities. So our inmates are receiving care in line with best practices and in line with recommendations.
In other news tonight, Minister of Health Dr. Christopher Tufton visited the communities of Waterford in St. Catherine and Whitfield Town in St. Andrew as ongoing testing and surveillance takes place in these communities. Here is Colleen May with more on this story.
Minister of Health and Wellness Dr. Christopher Tofton, along with his team and political representative, toured the communities of Waterford in St. Catherine and Whitfield Town in St. Andrew that were placed under enhanced curfew measures on October 6 after seeing a rise in COVID-19 cases. Dr. Tofton, in speaking with our news team, says this tour was in an effort to assess the work being done with over 3,000 homes visited in Whitfield Town alone.
Today I spent some time in Whitfield Town with the Member of Parliament and with the health team, essentially to assess the work that we have been doing in the area since the last week when we announced the quarantine arrangements, which meant some additional restrictions, not as it used to be when we declared a quarantine area and that persons are allowed to go to work and back, but increase hours in terms of curfewing, restrictions on congregating persons, and also for the health team to go house to house to do temperature checks, to assess citizens and to determine the extent of the COVID spread in the area. To date, we have done a number of home visits, 3,000 or 4,000 home visits.
And we have actually done every single street, every household, and we have accounted for everybody.
What Nurse Shecklewood is saying is that we have done about 14,000 residents, and this includes temperature checks, getting their vital statistics, where the team suspects that there is need for testing. We have done testing, swab and testing. I am told that you have so far identified 16 positive cases in addition to what was there before, which triggered our entry.
Dr. Tofton further expressed that for the most part, residents in these communities are compliant with the testing being done.
Every case is potentially a case that can spread, and it only takes one case and the interaction with the community, particularly densely populated communities like this one, for you to have a spread of the virus. And what we try to do in cases like these is to reduce the spread, cauterize it, particularly because of the vulnerable communities that exist in these areas. The older population, persons with comorbidities. I mean, the young people here are not as great at risk, but the truth is they can become super spreaders. They take it home to the grandmothers and so on, and we have found cases like this. So everyone is important in the response. So I am satisfied that the work is on the ground. The team has been very active, as you can see. The Member of Parliament, the political directorate, the councillor has been supportive of the efforts. And I think that's the kind of spirit that we need to overcome or to respond effectively to COVID at the community level. The community up to this point are cooperating. However, I'm told some persons are refusing to do the test. So we have had some issues with persons not wanting to do the test. So I want to appeal to members of the community. If the team asks you to do the swab and the test, it's for your own good, it's for the good of the community, your family members, so please try and get it done.
Member of Parliament for South Western St. Andrew, Dr. Angela Brown-Burke, says it is important for persons to do away with the stigma attached to COVID-19, as getting tested for the virus is very important to reducing its spread.
Coming in and just adding the support, the visible support to the team that has been on the ground and doing the work is extremely important, especially because when you first came in and it was advertised, people were a little bit skeptical and so on. I've been here before, Minister, and I've done a little walkthrough. I've seen the team on the ground. I've seen individuals cooperating. I think when we say stigma, it's really a fear of stigma. And so because there's that fear of being stigmatized, I think it is important for us to implore everybody. Getting tested is important, so you shouldn't be loading up anybody because they're getting tested. Even individuals who test positive, it could be you or I.
Reporting from Mello TV News, I'm Colleen May.
Meanwhile, Dr. Tofton says the government has been making preparations to manage the rise in COVID-19 cases that is now peaking in Jamaica.
One of the things that we have to do is manage the pandemic. And it can't be a panic response. The truth is, from the start of this pandemic, back in January, we have taken decisions in a very deliberate and strategic way. And based on the short history of the pandemic and how it has manifested itself in other jurisdictions, we have learned from that. We have learned from our own experiences. We knew all along that with the lifting of restrictions, which was essential to try to restore some sense of normality to the country, people have to travel, businesses have to go on, people have to go to work, that the risk of a surge would be real. And indeed, the phase of the pandemic, of the virus, is that at some point you're going to get the community transmission. So what we have been doing is preparing for it all along and preparing to manage it when we got to this point. So far, I think we are doing that. I mean, clearly, I regret and we regret the deaths of persons. It's unfortunately a feature of community transmission. And what we try to do is to minimize, if not totally eliminate that.
Now, Dr. Tufton further expressed that at this time, he is unable to predict when the country will reach the peak in COVID-19 cases.
I can't predict with absolute certainty when we will get to the peak, but the history of the virus suggests that between 8 to 12 weeks from the inflection point, you will see a peak. So if you go by that, you're looking at sometime in October, November. And what we're seeing is a gradual, very gradual slowing of the spread. It's too early to conclude because there are so many variables that are not totally in our control. So we just have to continue to press ahead, push the messaging, and try to get the behavioral change that's necessary. What we want to ensure is that nobody who needs hospital care isn't able to get it. We want to ensure that people know what their role is in managing themselves and people around them. And we want to ensure that our frontline staff are protected as they carry out their work. A difficult task it may be, but that they are protected and given the adequate support. And all of that to date has been relatively in place. I mean, you do have issues from time to time and you have to adjust. So from that perspective, my own view, and clearly we are subject to be judged by others, is that we have done fairly well. But the process is ongoing.
In the meantime, the Ministry of Health and Wellness has indicated that it will be procuring supplies of the antiviral drug remdesivir, which has been proven to shorten the recovery time for some patients. Now, the drug will be sourced through the National Health Fund to treat COVID-19 patients in public health facilities. The ministry, in a statement yesterday, said it took the decision following a public call for greater access to remdesivir. The ministry further explained that the procurement is based on the available scientific evidence, including the highly rated New England Journal of Medicine that shows remdesivir may be effective in the treatment of the coronavirus. The drug has been shown to reduce the length of in-hospital stays by 5 days and to reduce mortality rates by 4%. However, the ministry has advised that clinical trials are ongoing in various countries. The statement further outlined that the ministry has issued a number of emergency permits for the importation of the drug. Now, this requires a letter from the prescribing physician indicating the need for this drug and includes recognition of the responsibility for prescribing an unapproved drug as well as the consent of the patient to take an unapproved drug. The ministry said it has stipulated that the prescribing and administering of the drug must comply with certain conditions. In news from the capital, quick action from residents close to the Sandy Gully in St. Andrew yesterday saved the life of 14-year-old Michaela Anderson after she became trapped on a landing in the middle of the gully. She was facing the threat of being washed away by raging waters from heavy rainfall. Although it was residents who carried out the major part of the rescue effort, teams from the fire brigade, the police and the military were on location as the incident unfolded at approximately 2 p.m. Residents say that Michaela was among a group of children playing near the edge of the gully just moments before she fell meters deep into the ravine's raging waters. She held on to a concrete structure until she was pulled out by young men who were on the other side of the gully. Residents had high praises for two soldiers who entered the floodwaters in an attempt to reach the girl, but were dealt a raw deal by the circumstances. Michaela explained that she was trying to cross the gully when she was caught off guard by the floodwaters. That's when she took refuge on a concrete structure in the gully, where she held on to a tree until she was rescued. She also extended thanks to all those who came to her assistance. Still making news tonight, 3 men who were arrested and charged in what investigators believe was the country's largest credit card scam locally in 2010 were found guilty when they appeared in the Manchester Parish Court yesterday. The verdict put an end to their 7-year trial. Tetlow Frith, the alleged mastermind behind the credit card scam, and his 2 confederates, Carlos Burton and Jermaine Vernon, all from Manchester addresses, were found guilty for various breaches of the Cybercrimes Act. They were released on bail to return on December 8 for sentencing. Frith, Burton and Vernon were arrested in November of 2010 during a series of coordinated operations in Manchester. At the end of the operations, detectives seized scores of credit and debit cards bearing the names of several Jamaican and American financial institutions. Now, investigators also found an embossing machine like the ones used by banks to affix numbers and letters to one side of debit or credit cards, magnetic strips which store information about the bank and the card's owner, skimming devices used to harvest information from legitimate cards, as well as laptop computers and other equipment used to make matching identification cards. Investigators believe the ring was responsible for manufacturing hundreds of cards that were circulated across Jamaica. In news from St. James, 2 schools in the parish were the latest recipients of the Tablets in Schools program, with students that are on the PATH program being gifted with tablets to assist them with their online learning. More on this story with Tamara Mikhail.
As part of the Tablets in Schools program, an initiative of the government, Minister of Education, Youth and Information Favour Williams and eLearning Jamaica handed over tablets to the Barrett Town and Johns Hall primary schools in Montego Bay, St. James earlier today. Minister Williams, who was the keynote speaker at today's handing over ceremony, explained why the government is first issuing tablets to the children that are on the PATH program.
So I'm delighted to be here to continue the rollout of the 40,000 tablets targeted for students on PATH in grades 4, 5, and 6 of our public primary schools. Why are we targeting PATH students? They are the neediest of the needy in our society, as measured on the index that we use for poverty. And why are we targeting grades 4, 5, and 6? Because as you know, those are the exam grades. And so we have to ensure that those students have these devices so that they can use them to enrich their studies, their lessons, so that they're prepared, better prepared, I should say.
Minister Williams also expressed that learning has to continue in spite of the time we are living in with the COVID-19 pandemic.
It's not the ideal situation that we're in, but learning has to continue. Many areas still don't have internet access. In some of the areas that have access, it's spotty, it's infrequent. So we know of those challenges. And the ministry has taken some action to ensure that at least in those schools that do not have access, that we will be installing the capability, we will be installing satellite access so that they will have the capability to have internet access at the school. so that teachers who don't have that access at home can come to the school and do their online teaching. And the principals and teachers are able to be in the online world at their schools. So we're moving ahead. There are 100 schools that have been identified, and I know the provider has already started. We're speaking to other providers for the remaining 138 schools, and in time, all our schools will have internet access, and that is a commitment from the government.
Chief Executive Officer of eLearning Jamaica Company Limited, Keith Smith, in his remarks, said that a total of 23,000 tablets to teachers have been handed over.
We struggled initially with some of the program issues over the last couple of years, but I'm happy to say that we are now starting to achieve those objectives. In terms of the tablet for teachers that we just finished, we have already rolled out over 23,000 of the 25,000 tablets to teachers. And we had an appeal process, and that appeal process is now down to the last 1,500 teachers, which I told the team this morning in a call, that I expect that we'll wrap that up in the next couple of weeks. So by the end of the first week in November, 40,000 tablets will be distributed to students island-wide. What we have done this year with the 25,000 for the teachers and the 40,000 so far, we are completing 65,000 in 1 year.
Mr. Smith further outlined that e-learning will be handing out over 100,000 devices in the hands of our students this year.
We're also in the process of seeking some approvals to acquire another 16,000 tablets and 15,000 laptops that we're going to start distributing hopefully in the next few weeks. So this year, e-learning will be pushing out over 100,000 devices in the hands of our students. And as the regional director said a while ago, certainly critical as far as teaching and learning. Along with the devices, we're putting in place technology support. So we have a service assurance help desk that both students and teachers can call to deal with any technical problems, to deal with any user problems. The devices come with a 12-month warranty that will help the schools and the students manage in terms of if manufacturer defects. And I think this is just the first of many things to come. E-learning is here to support the policy of the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Technology. It's as we roll out technology in education, and we have to get it done quickly because COVID gives us no choice.
For Mello TV News, I am Tamara McHale.
In news from Manchester, Manpower and Maintenance Services Limited, MMS, yesterday donated $350,000 worth of personal protective equipment, PPEs, and supplies to the Mandeville Regional Hospital. The items are 1,000 N95 medical face masks, 1,000 dust masks, 500 natural gloves, one 55-gallon drum of hand sanitizer, and one 55-gallon drum of alcohol, valued at $350,000. Now, in handing over the items, Deputy CEO of MMS, Garth Hinchcliffe, said the hospital is close to the heart of founder Audrey Hinchcliffe because that is where she received her early nursing training. Chairman of the Southern Regional Health Authority, SRHA, Wayne Chen, in expressing gratitude for the donation, described the MMS's founder as a daughter of Trelawney and Manchester who has not forgotten her roots but has continued to give outstanding public service to both parishes. Regional Director Michael Bent also thanked MMS for the donation, pointing out that the company had responded quickly to the request for the items that would keep the frontline staff safe. And those were the stories making news. I am Shelley Ann Hill. We'll now take a break and then join Christopher Scott with sports.